guys, I'm here in Eastern Washington, and today I'm going to show you how to harvest red root stem bark. First I want to talk a little bit about the ID. First of all, this particular spot is somewhere where a forest fire has come through, and red root is a plant that on the east side of the Cascades tends to grow where there's some fire ecology in the area. And it's actually, because of its really deep roots, one of the first things to show up after a forest fire, which is really exciting. And I think you guys saw one of my other videos showed red root coming back after a fire. But today we're gonna harvest. So first thing I wanna show you guys is, I have my loppers here, which is, I like the larger clippers, but you can also just use your regular clippers or a saw, a hand saw, to harvest this. I always look for the trident shaped veins on the leaves, which I always joke is kind of like a digging fork, which is one of the things you need to dig it up. And it also is pretty waxy, and it has a very specific smell. It kind of smells like creosote a little bit, which is what telephone poles are coated in, because it has a lot of saponins and a little bit of resin in it. And a lot of plants on this side tend to have strong smells because warmer, drier places tend to have more aromatic plants. I like the smell personally. You can smell it too when the sun is hitting it and it's warming it up and you're walking on the trail and it kind of like hits you. So we're gonna select a branch, and I always make sure that the branch is healthy. So this is the branch I'm gonna do, and indeed it looks green and the bugs on the actual bark. That's good. And I'm going to follow it all the way down to its origin and just give it a little snip off there. And red root is a pretty strong medicine, so you don't need a lot. So really all you need is just a branch to start with. If you know that you're going to use a lot of red root in the year, you can harvest more, but I would just start with something about this size. And we're going to move over here just a little bit, and I'm going to show you how to strip the bark off. So usually first step would be, we're gonna cut off all of the side branches like so. And we don't need to do all of them in the video for you guys, but I just want to show a couple until you're kind of left with one single branch. And I like to harvest about this thickness. You can harvest thicker ones than that if you want. People kind of talk about the rule of thumb, being that it's larger than your thumb. Red root branches get kind of a little bit thinner, so I think it's more like the rule of pinky for red root. And to peel the bark off, we've done this in previous videos, so I'm not going to dwell overly much on it, but pretty simple. You're going to have something to peel it onto, and you're going to peel it down to the wood. And this red root bark is actually pretty wet. I think it's been like kind of a wet year, so I don't think I've ever seen it come off this easily. Wow. And the bark, you can harvest it kind of before flowering. You can harvest it in the fall. Because I don't live on the east side of the mountains, I just harvest it whenever I get over here. So that's kind of my deal. And then you're going to take this bark and tincture it. And one thing I want you to know about red root is that because it has tannins and saponins in it, those two compounds do this thing when they're in a solution, i.e. alcohol, together, where the tannins kind of glob up and form this like globular mass at the bottom of the tincture. So to avoid that, all you need to do is just put a dash of vegetable glycerin in your tincture, which is kind of sweet. It's an alcohol derivative. I think it's made of soy or something like that. You can get it at the herb store, you can get it at Mountain Rose Herbs and all that stuff. And it will help the tannins not glob up, and it'll help them stay in solution. So red root is one of the plants that needs that in the tincture in order to be stable. Also, red root does not make a great tea. So people get really excited, like, oh, can we dry it for tea? Like, yes, and number one, the compounds kind of, as it dries, go away apparently, and the tea really tastes terrible. So I recommend making a tincture of this particular one and doing the dash of glycerin and tincturing it probably at about 50% alcohol. Now, one might ask, what are we going to use red root for? Red root is a really powerful lymphatic mobilizer, which means that the lymph nodes are here. They get swollen when you're sick and when you're having an immune response. And some people just have naturally like swollen glands or even like cystic breasts and kind of like build up. Your breasts are a lot of lymphatic tissue, and so red root can also help mobilize that. And so I put it in formulas for colds and flus, formulas for infections, and also formulas for things like cystic tissue and stuff like that. And like detox formulas as well, getting your lymphatic system moving. And that is all I have to say about red root. There's a couple other species in Washington. This one is Ceanothus volutinus. Ceanothus is the genus name for red root. And I don't know if this was clear, but it's called red root because the root is red. And some people say that you have to have the root for medicine. It's a little bit more impactful and also a lot more difficult to dig up a red root plant. And I think the stem bark does a pretty good job of doing the same thing in my experience. So I'm kind of me and some other herbalists are trying to popularize using this part of the plant more than the root. I might do another video about the root as well, but I think it's nice to start with the stem bark because it's so much easier and less impactful for the plant. In fact, they come by here with their loppers and just like lop off all of the red root all along the Forest Service road. So it's not, your one branch is not a huge impact, which I like. That's all I have to say about red root. Thanks, guys.